The date is May 19th, 2024. A helicopter lifts off from a remote mountainous region in northwestern Iran. On board, the most powerful man in the Islamic Republic, a man who had survived coups, wars, sanctions, and decades of enemies who wanted him dead. Then, silence. No distress signal, no mayday call, just a wall of fog swallowing a mountain, and the man who shaped the Middle East for over 30 decades. By the time rescue teams found the wreckage, a question had already begun burning across every intelligence agency, every newsroom, every government on the planet. Was this an accident? Or was it something far more calculated? A geopolitical chess move decades in the making. Ebrahim Raisi was not the supreme leader of Iran, but he was the second most powerful man in the country and the heir apparent, the man groomed to one day sit in Ali Khamenei's seat. When Raisi died in that helicopter crash, along with Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdul Al-Hayyan, Iran lost not just a president, it lost the future face of its regime. But to understand why his death sent shockwaves through Washington, Tel Aviv, Riyadh, and Moscow, you have to understand what Iran had become. And you have to understand the man who built it. Because this isn't just a story about a helicopter going down in a fog-covered mountain. This is a story about power, about succession, about a theocratic empire that had spent 45 years preparing for war, and the moment the world watched its next king disappear from the sky. Go back to 1979. The Iranian Revolution shook the foundations of the modern world. The Shah, America's man in Tehran, was overthrown, and in his place rose Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a cleric who turned a nation into a theocracy unlike anything the world had seen since the medieval caliphates. For the next decade, Iran fought a brutal war against Iraq, a war that killed over 1 million people, a war the United States quietly backed on both sides. When Khomeini died in 1989, his successor, Ali Khamenei, took the reins, a man far more calculated, far more patient, far more dangerous. Under Khamenei, Iran built something remarkable. Not just nuclear facilities, not just ballistic missiles, but an ideological empire, an axis of resistance stretching from Tehran through Baghdad, Damascus, Beirut, and into the Gaza Strip. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq, a web of proxy power that gave Iran reach without direct exposure. Iran became a nation that could fight everywhere and technically be nowhere. Ibrahim Raisi entered this world as a true believer. Born in 1960, raised in the revolutionary fervor of the 1970s, Raisi became a cleric, a prosecutor, and eventually one of the most feared judicial figures in the Islamic Republic. In 1988, and this matters deeply, Raisi sat on what Iranians would call the Death Committee, a panel of judges that ordered the mass execution of political prisoners. Amnesty International estimates between 5,000 and 30,000 people were killed. Raisi never publicly acknowledged it, and the Iranian government never apologized. That was the man who became president in 2021. That was the man flying in that helicopter on a foggy Sunday afternoon in May 2024. The helicopter crash didn't happen in a vacuum. The weeks leading up to May 19, 2024 were some of the most explosive in the modern Middle East. Just 1 month earlier, in April 2024, Iran had done something it had never done in its history. For the first time ever, it launched a direct attack on Israeli soil. Over 300 drones and missiles were fired from Iranian territory toward Israel. It was a moment that broke a 45-year pattern of shadow warfare. Iran had always fought through proxies. Now it was out in the open. Israel retaliated. The region teetered on the edge of full-scale war. Meanwhile, Gaza was burning. The October 7th Hamas attack had triggered one of the most devastating military campaigns in modern Israeli history, and Iran, the primary financial and military backer of Hamas, was watching its strategic calculations unravel in real time. Inside Iran, the pressure was immense. The economy was strangled by sanctions. Protests had shaken the regime in 2022 following the death of Mahsa Amini. The youth of Iran were increasingly hostile to the clerical establishment. And Raisi, the man expected to eventually lead the Supreme Leader's office, was flying through fog-covered mountains on a Bell 212, an American-made helicopter, a model that Iran had operated since before the revolution, a model for which spare parts and maintenance had been severely restricted by decades of U.S. sanctions. The helicopter went down in the Arasbaran forest region near the Azerbaijan border. It took nearly 16 hours to find the wreck. When rescue teams finally reached the crash site at dawn on May 20th, 2024, what they found silenced the world. There were no survivors. President Raisi, Foreign Minister Amir Abdul Al-Hayyan, the governor of East Azerbaijan province, 7 others, all dead. Iran's state media initially spoke of a hard landing. Then the tone shifted. By morning, it was confirmed the helicopter had crashed. The cause, dense fog, zero visibility, and mountainous terrain. The official Iranian investigation concluded it was an accident, mechanical failure compounded by severe weather conditions. But in intelligence circles, the questions never stopped. Here is what we know factually. The Bell 212 helicopter Raisi flew in was part of a fleet Iran has maintained since the 1970s. Due to U.S. sanctions, Iran cannot legally purchase American aircraft parts. The aircraft were aging, maintenance was improvised. Multiple aviation experts noted that flying through mountain fog in those conditions in that aircraft was an extraordinarily high-risk decision. The convoy had 3 helicopters. 2 landed safely. Only Raisi's went down. Israeli intelligence, known as Mossad, has an extensive history of covert operations inside Iran. The assassination of nuclear scientists, cyber attacks on nuclear centrifuges, explosions at military facilities, operations that Iran has directly attributed to Israel and which Israel has rarely confirmed or denied. When asked directly whether Israel was involved in the helicopter crash, Israeli officials gave answers carefully designed to say nothing. One official told reporters, and this was noted widely, that Israel was not involved. But the phrasing, the timing, the context, all of it fed a wildfire of speculation. Iran, for its part, pointed fingers broadly. Some officials hinted at sabotage. Others blamed sanctions-related maintenance failures. The Supreme Leader himself, Khamenei, offered no specific accusation. He moved quickly to stabilize the country, appointing a caretaker government and calling for calm, because Khamenei understood something critical in that moment. Panic was the enemy. Imagine what those 16 hours felt like inside Tehran. The most powerful government in the Middle East, a regime that presents itself as unbreakable, divinely guided, and invincible, had lost its president, and no one knew where the body was. State television played Quranic verses on loop. Social media inside Iran was a battlefield of conflicting reports. Outside Iran, in cities like Los Angeles, London, and Toronto, home to millions of Iranian diaspora, there were people who felt something complicated, something human, a mix of grief, relief, uncertainty, and fear. Because whatever you thought of Raisi, whatever his role in 1988, whatever his politics, the death of a sitting head of state is never a simple moment in history. It is a rupture, a before and after. For the families of the 1988 political prisoners, people who had spent decades demanding accountability, the moment was bittersweet. The man they believed should have faced an international tribunal was gone, not to justice, to a fog-covered mountain. For Iranian hardliners, Raisi was a martyr. His funeral drew millions into the streets of Tehran, some of the largest crowds in modern Iranian history. A display of loyalty, or perhaps a display of something more primal, a nation asserting its survival in the face of uncertainty. For the West, for Washington and Brussels and Tel Aviv, the immediate question wasn't grief, it was strategy. Who comes next? Here is where history pivots. Khamenei is old. he's in his mid-80s. For years, the assumption inside intelligence communities was that Raisi was being positioned as his successor, a loyal hardliner, a true believer, a man who would continue the revolutionary project into a new generation. That plan, if it ever existed, died in the mountains of northwestern Iran. The succession question is now wide open, and in a theocratic system where succession has no clear democratic mechanism, that is not a small thing. That is the kind of uncertainty that shapes decades. Iran held emergency elections. Masoud Pezeshkian, a moderate reformist, surprisingly won the presidency, a result that shocked observers who had watched Iran systematically eliminate moderate voices from its political system for years. Was this a genuine pivot or a tactical adjustment, a regime buying time by offering the appearance of reform while protecting its core power structure? The honest answer is, we don't know yet. History is still writing this chapter. What we do know is this: the helicopter crash of May 19, 2024 accelerated timelines that were already in motion. It exposed the fragility beneath Iran's projection of strength. It raised questions about succession, stability, and the future of one of the most consequential nations on Earth. Whether it was fog and faulty maintenance or something more deliberate, the outcome is the same. The Islamic Republic lost its chosen heir, and the Middle East will not be the same. History rarely announces itself. It doesn't send you a warning. It doesn't give you a press release. It just arrives, sometimes in a storm, sometimes in a fog, sometimes in a mountain in the middle of nowhere, and everything after it is different. On May 19, 2024, a helicopter carrying one of the most powerful and controversial figures in the modern world vanished into the clouds. What happened next will shape Iran and the entire Middle East for a generation. The fog has cleared, but the questions, they're just beginning. If this story made you think, hit that like button and subscribe. Every week, we bring you the history they don't teach in school, the full picture, the real story. This is what happened and why it still matters today.